So hello and welcome everybody to the third session on day 4 of the BigBlueButtonWorld 2022 Global Conference. I'm really pleased to welcome our third speaker for today, Lars, software engineer at the E-Learning Academic Network, an association that promotes the cooperation of its members in e-learning supported and cross-location courses. Cross-location courses and provides impetus for the constant improvement of the quality of university teaching through the use of new media. And so today in this talk, he'll be discussing Opencast, a free and open source video management system specifically targeted at higher education that's been integrated into BigBlueButton to offload the video processing and to be able to manage all the video data from one single place. So Lars, without further ado, I'll go ahead and I'll pass the microphone off to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the introduction. I already see that people started joking about my kitchen in chat. I did many web conferences and webinars from here in the last 2-3 years, so people know that, and we already discussed that at some point. I definitely need this as a background image in BigBlueButton, so that if at any point in time I'm not here and I still have to do a session, I can still use that as a background image. But anyway, let's go into the actual topic of today, and that is Opencast and BigBlueButton and the integration of those two tools. So in the introduction, Ben already said that I work for the E-Learning Academic Network in Niedersachsen, and we are mostly a technical support for a lot of universities in Germany, a lot of e-learning centers and things like that. And in that, we were heavily invested also in everything related to the move to e-learning tools during the pandemic. And that's kind of where my story starts. You also see a picture here I took from a badge I've had to wear last week, because there were a joint conference of the German BigBlueButton community and the German Opencast community here in Osnabrück, where I'm located. And it was a really interesting meeting, because it was the first in-person meeting for a long time, and we had a great week and had a lot of things to exchange. But yeah, it being both an Opencast conference directly followed by the BigBlueButton conference also shows that both of these projects are somewhat connected, or at least have a lot of overlap in people who are interested in these projects. So yeah, let's start from there, and let me tell you a story. And if you have been to the last session, you've already heard about this map. This is a map we started. It's now also linked on the side of the European BigBlueButton Association. And I've marked my employer here. And so you see we are right in the middle of the European bubble. So these are all registered BigBlueButton instances. Actually, I'm located a little bit below this. So Osnabrück is a little bit more to the south than Oldenburg is. But yeah, so we're right in the middle of this. And this is also important to know when you go back and start talking about how things started on the pandemic. But first of all, I would like to take you back a little bit more than that. And it was actually hard to find this, but luckily, this is a tweet Opencast tweeted in 2012. And to be honest with you, we were internally discussing if this interface was still Adobe Connect or already was BigBlueButton, but we were pretty sure that this is already BigBlueButton. So we knew about BigBlueButton for quite a long time, and we have used BigBlueButton in Opencast for years now. And it was always it was sometime interesting that Fred would pop up in our technical meetings, so the Opencast technical meetings, because we were on test servers of his, and he was checking out if new features worked or did not work, and so we were kind of testing the new beta version of BigBlueButton. It's something where he hasn't shown up in the last 3 years, But I also guess that now he has a lot more testers than just our small little technical group. But so we knew about BigBlueButton for quite a long time. And the next thing, when the pandemic hit, the German research network already had something in place that all universities could use, and that is something called DFN-Conf. So this is this site here. And it actually worked pretty well before the pandemic. So when the pandemic started, everyone was recommending that this is something people should use. What they didn't quite realize is that this had a little bit of a scaling problem with the pandemic, because the German Research Network assumed that around 300 people would use this at the same time for all of Germany. That sounds absolutely hilarious from today's point of view, but back in the day, it worked pretty well. And when the pandemic started, people were saying, okay, yeah, this is something you can use, you should use that. And they were saying that for approximately 10 minutes. And then people stopped mentioning this altogether because it did not scale at all. And so, yeah, we started setting up BigBlueButton instances. And also during the last session, Fred asked how many schools are now running their own infrastructure, running their own BigBlueButtons. And this is a tweet I tweeted in 2020 about Osnabrück University. And you can see that here we have, I think these are 19... So 48 BigBlueButton servers in our cluster. We had on this Monday approximately 2,200, 2,300 users at the same time in this university. And Osnabrück University is not even a large university, so it's a mid-sized university with around 13,000 students. But also, if you did take a look at the BigBlueButton documentation back at the day, then the documentation would say something like, you can have maybe 100 users on a server. And even then, if people would all share the screens and the webcams and stuff like that, BigBlueButton would start to struggle. Now, over the last couple of years, BigBlueButton has improved tremendously when it comes to scalability. So now it's not a problem to have a few hundred people on the server. Back then, it definitely was a problem. And so we did do a lot of tweaking and trying to limit how BigBlueButton would exhaust its servers. So we had little tweaks, like, for example, in the chat, you see these typing notifications. It's something we found out at some point. We're hitting the server pretty hard when you would run instances with hundreds of users on them. So that's something we could tweak and turn off. But we were pretty concerned still about scalability, about servers breaking when few hundred users would join at the same time or relatively close to each other and things like that. So we were very concerned to offload as much load as possible from the servers. And one important thing here was to offload the recordings, more specifically the processing of these recordings. So this was something we kept in mind. So we started to with just not doing any recordings. But given that we have been doing recordings for years and years and years now at Osnabrück University, for example, and by the way, I'm going to mention Osnabrück a lot here because we heavily cooperate with them. And I also helped out setting up and getting BigBlueButton to start and run at Osnabrück University. So that's my prime example here. Yeah, so we were very concerned about recordings, but we also had another tool which we knew scaled quite well with recordings, and that's Opencast. So let's do, at this point, a quick detour and take a look at what Opencast is. And don't worry, I'm not going to talk for the rest of my talk about the features of Opencast. So Opencast is also an old, or or oldish project. So we are around, I think, 12 years now, used at a lot of different universities. If you look at a world map, it's probably similar to what you see with BigBlueButton, that German-speaking countries and all over Europe, there are a lot of instances, and probably most instances. But for most teachers, this is what they would see when they talk about Opencast. So this is the learning management system of Osnabrück University. This is Stutterp, and you would just have your course, and in this course you would have your tab Opencast, and in here you would have all your videos. And by the way, these are from the Opencast Summit, which we did in BigBlueButton and were recorded in BigBlueButton, but then transcoded in Opencast. And you can do things like, what you would expect, like start the videos. You can also see that Opencast has features like you have multiple views. You have a presentation stream, you have a presenter stream. You can arrange them differently, so you can turn them around. You can make one larger than the other one, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of different features in here. And let me go back here. You have also different other features from the learning management, so you don't really have to interact with Opencast a lot, and a lot of people don't even know that there is a large system for processing videos and doing all kind of crazy stuff in the back end. So here you could upload videos, or you could also do something like record videos in the web. Going to Opencast itself, is actually a system which also deals with a lot of automatically recorded data. So you can equip your lecture hall with hardware, and then you could say that, for example, in this lecture hall, I want to schedule a recording for, let's say, the 22nd, and it should start at, let's say, 11 a.m. and it should run for not 7 hours, but let's say 2 hours. And you could just schedule an event. You can select the rooms here. Here there are just 2 test rooms. I'm also on a public Opencast test server right now. So if you want to test this yourself, stable.opencast.org. And I could continue, and I could select how to process this. I could add different access levels and all these things, and at the end of the day, this would then be automatically recorded. Obviously, I could also, instead of doing that, upload something, for example, here. And then you have just a regular upload. You can also add a lot of metadata. Opencast folks are kind of crazy about metadata at a lot of places. You have tools for recording things in the web. So that's something that was heavily used during the pandemic. So people can just go to a website. They can select, do I want to only record the screen, or do I want to record myself, or do I want to record both? Let's just select both here. I have to select what I want to record. And for example, I could select here the BigBlueButton session we are just using. Then be able to select audio, go for it, could start my recording, talk some, or do a quick lecture here, or do some introduction for my students. And then at the end of the day, I would stop this. I can also cut this, and finally either upload this to Opencast directly or download this. There's also a video editor, so later on I could decide to cut out segments in my video. All this is online. I can do some things like metadata editing. By the way, these are more metadata than you need, and that you probably want to have, but again, crazy about metadata. You can have a track selection, so I can remove tracks if I don't want to see me, for example, and then at the end of the day, I can start the processing and the publication, which I'm not going to do here. Yeah, and finally, there's also the new video portal coming. So this is a recent development and something that is probably interesting for people who don't want all their videos to end up in the LMSs. So in the learning management systems are a very important integration in Opencast. So you have integrations into Study, that's what you have seen, but you have also integrations in basically all other major learning management systems like Sakai, like Ilias, like Moodle, like Canvas, like Blackboard. So you can get all your videos in there, but if you want to have something that more represents your university, for example, to the outer world, this is a new video portal where you can publish public videos. But it also acts a little bit like a YouTube for your campus, where people can upload stuff and make this public to others. But yeah, recent development, not quite finished. The release should be in the next 2 weeks, I think. But yeah, so this is my quick detour about Opencast. And so we knew a lot about video processing already and had a lot of videos in these systems already. So Osnabrück University, again, mid-sized university, had over 20,000 videos pre-pandemic. Now, after the or at this point in time, we have over 50,000 videos in there. But even that, it's not as large one. And so if we go back to this tweet from earlier, where I said that what's really, really important here is for us to scale up and make BigBlueButton scale better than having a system where we know that it scales quite well and it can handle videos. So this was a really, near idea to just say, okay, why not push these videos over and have them processed in there and then published in there. And I've said that we had or now have 50,000 overall. If you look at the numbers, for example, here from the University of Manchester, who's recording a lot of videos, they use Opencast. And if you look at the numbers here, you see they record, for example, in the semester 2018-2019, over 62,000 videos alone. So we know that Opencast scales up. So the idea was there pretty early, and the first integration was also pretty early. So I've set up BigBlueButton in March, and then on March 18th, March 18th, 2020, I made this blog post about integrating Opencast and BigBlueButton. And this was basically just a proof of concept. Yeah, you can do that. And as you can see, it's not a lot of code, because basically what it does is take your video files and throws them over to Opencast. In here, it's doing that in a post-publish hook. So BigBlueButton does allow you to add hooks at the end of a recording or at certain points in time of the recording. The problem with this, obviously, if you know about these hooks, is that post-publish means BigBlueButton will still transcode the video, and that's something we have wanted to avoid. But it's still something that we know it's possible to get these data off BigBlueButton and towards Opencast. And so later on, we started developing this a little bit further and doing more than my proof of concept, which I did at one evening, basically. And so more people joined in, and we started developing the Opencast BigBlueButton integration. So as you can see, this is public, organization, and if you want to use it, you can just check it out. There's also documentation about how to install this. You can also map a lot of metadata from BigBlueButton to Opencast, so that you end up with a lot of nice metadata. And as you can see, there's not only the post-publish integration, which is still there, so you can use that, but there's also a post-archive integration now, which means that you push things over before processing things on BigBlueButton. And starting to use this, we also noticed that there are more nice side effects you have, because that means that you really push all your video data as early as possible from your BigBlueButton cluster, so you don't have any state more or less in BigBlueButton. And you can do things like, as soon as people leave a server, you can just throw away that server and deploy new ones and stuff like that. You also don't have to have so there is an alternative to that. If you have looked at BigBlueButton's recordings in the past, and the alternative to that is obviously to have a shared file system, so an NFS backend or something like that, where the files from all the servers end up on. But still, if you have to maintain that, and you also have to then integrate this into your Scalite or whatever you use for a load balancer and stuff like that. And we could spare ourselves all this hassle. We have a more or less stateless BigBlueButton cluster, because all of our video data lives where all of our other video data already lives. So this is really, really nice. We also can do all the removal of videos at the same place. We don't have to search for videos and things like that. So yeah, that was quite successful. And going back to where we started with our learning management systems, now here you have our integration of BigBlueButton. So the StudAP Meetings plugin does BigBlueButton, and you could start a BigBlueButton session from here. You also can see that this does support recordings, so you can select if you are allowed to record or not allowed to record a room. And from here, I would then start a BigBlueButton. So here we go. Again, I'm not going to do that right now, but you can imagine, because you're in a BigBlueButton right now. And at the end of the day, when things are processed in the same course, again, this would end up in the Opencast tab here, and you get all your videos at the same place, regardless of if they come from BigBlueButton or if the lecturer uploaded it themselves, or if they recorded it online using the online recording tool Opencast Studio I've showed you earlier. So all of this ends at the same place, and this is really, really nice. A very, very quick note about how this works. So how does BigBlueButton know where to put it into Opencast? Or you can also turn it around and say, how does Opencast know where this came from? The meetings plugin here just sets one additional metadata field in BigBlueButton, so you can add additional metadata to all these meeting rooms, and it just sets an Opencast series. Series is basically a list or a playlist of videos that Opencast then knows about, and usually one series is associated with one room in Moodle and StudAP and all these learning management systems. So that means that it will end in here. We also extended the plugin for Moodle, so if you want to use that, there is an open pull request for quite a long time against the Moodle plugin for BigBlueButton. And I know that a few people already use that, so that's also a possibility there. And it works in the same way, so things will end up in your room at the end of the day. Yeah, that's basically it. If you have any questions about the integration, or if you have any questions about Opencast, or if you have any questions about how we set it up at the beginning of the pandemic, then feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, Lars. That was an amazing presentation. We got a good amount of questions that are coming in here. Would you prefer to just read them through the chat, or do you want me to field them out to you?
I can probably just try reading them. If I miss anything, please chime in and do that. Sure. So additional metadata, and I think it's more a question of additional data in general. So what we do right now is mainly to push through Opencast the recordings of the webcams, the recordings of the screen share, and then the presentations you uploaded. There are more data in BigBlueButton, and Opencast has the context of we have one event, and this event has a media package where you can throw all kinds of data on this package. And the main thing, obviously, is video and audio, because that's at the end of the day what all of this is about. But you could also add PDFs, data sets, whatever you like, and store them along with your recording if you want to do that. Now, the default players of Opencast wouldn't necessarily know what to do with student analytics data there. And I also don't know if you want to publish them or keep them internal, but Opencast does have an archive for all of these events, and you could keep them internal. And then if you're interested in that, you could take a look at the recording and also get these data back. So in theory, you could pass them on and also store them there. But that's a theory because no one does it right now. Although for the additional metadata, like, for example, the PDFs uploaded to BigBlueButton, that's already an option to pass that on to Opencast. Students still use, oh, no, that's the answer already from Arno, I think. Is that? Anyway, yeah, so I don't know if that's a question or already an answer to another question. So how can students access the videos and things like that? So everything for students lives in the learning management systems. And the idea of all of these integrations is mostly that as a student, or actually also as a lecturer, if I head to my course in my lecture, in my learning management system, then I want to find everything in there. I don't want to go to yet another place and remember this other place and find stuff there, but it's all integrated into a single course. So you would go there and join a BigBlueButton conference. You would also go there and then get the recordings later on. And you would also go there and get the slides and stuff like that. In fact, if you talk about Pseudo-P, for example, it's so integrated that talking about the slides in BigBlueButton, you can even pre-upload them into your learning management system, and then it would transfer it to BigBlueButton for your session, and then it would transfer it to Opencast for your recording and stuff like that. So just a single place for students. And I'm thinking maybe we should have talked the meetings developer into doing a session here. Are there any other questions I've missed?
I think we're
access control. So how do you manage access control on videos? There are multiple answers to that, I guess, and it's a constant thing of people wanting to do it different ways. So Opencast has a very elaborate access control system. You can, from a technical point of view, define arbitrary access control lists, and then you can check these against however you want to have people log into Opencast. So Opencast, in the simplest way, can manage its own users, but it also has an LDAP integration, and you could pass on, for example, things like that. It also supports LTI, learning tools interoperability, and that's, for example, what Pseudo-P uses when you come from there. So you, if you don't know this, you can just assume it's kind of like login with Facebook or login with GitHub or something like that. Just that Pseudo-P does it automatically for you, and you are logged in. And as a context, you also have your course ID, and the video gets the information about the course because BigBlueButton passes on the series, and so as a student logging in via StudIP, for example, I can only see things associated with this course. So even if I can manage to get the link to another video file, I wouldn't be able to access that. Although, yeah, just guessing these random numbers would also be hard. So there are other options to do that. There is a token-based authentication you could use for this. But yeah, you could also use something like Shibboleth and just say, okay, you have to log in into this other system as well, or something like that. So there are different options.
I'm just going to chime in here real quick. I think there's still some more questions that might still be coming in or still need to be addressed. But I just want to let the attendees know that the next session with Roland and Martin from Faircom is going to be beginning right now. And so if you have some more questions for Lars, and Lars, maybe if you are able to maybe stick around for another minute or so, just to see if some questions come in that you might be able to address, I think that'd be great. But I just want to let people know that the next session is beginning, and you're more than welcome to come jump in there, or you're more than welcome to stay here as well. Lars, I don't know how much time you're willing to stay for, but if that's possible, then
I've probably time for half an hour. So you can throw questions at me.
All right.
You might also want to join the next session.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to stop the recording here.
Done.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. I'll come back in afterwards and I can end the recording and everything. Sounds good. Thanks again, Lars. Appreciate it.
Okay, then there was a question from Fred if other people use this video editor. So this is actually the new video editor for Opencast, which was developed, I think, last year and this year. So it's relatively new, and I don't know that anyone else is using that right now. Although we know that there is a French project called Pod, and they do something similar to Opencast, and they already use Studio, so that's a component for recording videos, and they're also interested in the editor. So for us, it's relatively new, and therefore not a lot of people are probably using it right now. There is also an older video editor in Opencast in the current administrative user interface, but that's also going to be replaced soonish. So there was a presentation about that last week. Any other questions that I already answered? Metadata. Can Opencast make use of CDNs? Yes, absolutely. So, for example, Harvard's Division of Continuing Education is using Opencast, and if I remember correctly, they use it together with Akamai as a content delivery network. So at the end of the day, Opencast just stores wherever you push your data to. In fact, Opencast could even push data to YouTube if you want that, and kind of manage your YouTube channel for you. Although I don't think many people actually use that, because most people who use Opencast don't want to use YouTube. But it just stores where your videos end up and your video files end up, and then lets other systems know, okay, yeah, please load the videos from here. You can also use streaming services. So it does support HLS streams. In fact, it also, back in the day, supported RTMP streams, so flash streaming and all of the nice things back from the day. But yeah, absolutely. Do you need any hardware for setup of the integration? I mean, kind of, because you need hardware to run things, but you don't need any specific hardware for this integration. So the integration itself, you have seen my first prototype, and it's a very, very short Ruby script, and that's something you just throw on your BigBlueButton servers. And what BigBlueButton essentially does is take your videos and then throw them over to Opencast, and that's more or less just an HTTP request, or bit large HTTP request. But so yeah, you definitely need your BigBlueButton servers. You definitely need Opencast servers, but you don't need any more than that. this control we had. Data, studio. Yeah, I can see. If you want to try Opencast, stable.opencast.org is probably a good way to go. There's also legacy Opencast.org and develop Opencast.org. If you want to take a look at where things were half a year ago, so Opencast releases every half a year a major release and then a monthly minor release. Obviously, if there is, I don't know, a security issue or something like that, we release more often than that. But that's the main thing. And you can try the old versions in current version and the new version. And the next major one is to be released mid-December, if I remember correctly. So I guess these are all the questions. So yeah, thanks for asking all the questions. I hope I've answered most of them. If I've missed anything, please let me know. I'm around for at least today again, and you can reach me via email, via Matrix, or you can just drop by at some point and I say hello to you in my kitchen or something like that. So have a nice day and have a nice conference. Bye-bye.